was asking, where's Gordon? Are we good?
Yep, we're ready to go.
All right. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to Chapel 3. It is absolutely wonderful to see our friendly, familiar faces, some new faces, which is wonderful. And today is very, very special for many reasons. Every time we come to Chapel 3, I always feel special. But every week I always say that this is a special week. This is a special Shabbat. This is a special opportunity for us. But tonight, it really, really is special for multiple reasons. So in a moment, I get to join our in-person attendees, and I know that we have many people joining us from around the world on the Fort Bliss Jewish Community Facebook page, but I will join the community in the pews because we have a guest speaker, our guest rabbi tonight, Rabbi Barry Axler, who I'm not going to share the full bio, but Rabbi Barry and I have been friends for many, many years. We have traveled together. We have been involved in humanitarian missions together. We have been involved in a traveling ministry, and that is thanks to Rabbi Barry, who has quite literally traveled the world leading communities in prayer. And by the way, not just Jewish communities, but leading communities around the world and coming together. And that's exactly, as I've shared our story of the Fort Bliss of the chapel, Barry said, when can I come? So this was such a great opportunity as we come together tonight in Chapel 3. We also, and I'll just use this opportunity to say we're excited to have Rabbi Barry and Maureen here for July 4th. We are going to be out with the rest of Fort Bliss at Pop Goes the Fort, so definitely make sure you check that out and you come out there. And also check out the Fort Bliss Jewish Community Facebook page to see, and I say this for everybody in the room, in just 2 weeks, actually from today, is the Fort Bliss Community Celebration, where we celebrate the anniversary of the Chaplain Corps. And there will be a phenomenal, phenomenal opportunity. First 500 people get free food, so that's kind of exciting. We will have a table for the Jewish community. We will actually, I already have the Israeli candies. I was so tempted to bring them here today, but we will have gifts and information about all of the services. So if you have not yet met either myself, Ellie in person, please stop by. I look forward to meeting you there. So that is part one. Part two is after we conclude the service here in Chapel 3, we'll head to the back. And this will be the first opportunity since pre-COVID where we will reopen our ONEG. And we actually have some great refreshments. And we will make some blessings together, pray together, maybe sing together a little bit. And we'll start doing this the first Friday of every month. So please join us as new soldiers come here and end up at Fort Bliss, or if you're mobilizing through Fort Bliss, please make sure to get in touch. We look forward to welcoming you, supporting you. And again, with that, I'll say Shabbat Shalom, Barry. It's such an honor and privilege to have you, my friends.
And it's an honor for me to be here. And Shabbat Shalom, everyone who is here. Shabbat Shalom to all those who are on the live stream, our troops, our bases all over the world. And also Shabbat Shalom to special friends and guests who are also joining us on the live stream. To be able to celebrate this weekend our nation's 245th birthday. So what a great thrill it is for us to be together. And you know, as I think about it, the words that come to my heart, the words that jump to my heart, are the opening words of Psalm 133 and the words of the very popular Hebrew song, Hine matov umanayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Behold how beautiful and how wonderful it is for family and friends to come together in prayer, in celebration, and in love. So anyway, Chaplain Staley and Chang, you know that our job is a very rewarding one, but it can have its moments as well. So let me share with you what happened this past week. I have a friend whose business is doing very well. He decided to move into a new location. So here was the grand opening this past week, and I had some flowers ordered that had the inscription, "Best of luck on your new location." So I come to the grand opening, and my flowers are there, and they have the inscription, "My condolences on your funeral." So I call the florist, and I said, "Look, and not only did you put the wrong words on the flowers, but look at what you've done to harm a very good friendship. And the florist said to me, Rabbi, if you think you have a problem, I have a funeral going on in town today that has a wreath of flowers with the inscription, best of luck on your new location. Fort Bliss is a new location for me. And I think I'm going to need all the luck I can gather. So we're going to start our service with the lighting of the candles. And in a moment, I will call upon Klein and also Maureen Dunn to come up to light the candles. As you can see, we have 2 candlesticks. That's the minimum. You can do more than 2, but you have to do 2. And the reason is that the 10 Commandments is in the Bible twice. The first time in the second book, Exodus, the second time in the last book, Deuteronomy, and each time all of the commandments are the same except for the Shabbat, for the Sabbath. The first time it says to Zachor, to remember the Sabbath day, and the second time in the last book it says to Shamor, to guard the Sabbath day. So because of those 2 words, to remember and to guard and or protect, we are commanded to light the 2 candles. Amen. Thank you. Thank you, Ellie and Maureen. I have an opening thought. Charles Plum was a U.S. Navy pilot in Vietnam. After 75 combat missions, his plane was destroyed by a surface-to-air missile. So Plum ejected and he parachuted into enemy hands. He was captured and spent 6 years in a communist Vietnamese prison. He survived the ordeal, and now he lectures on lessons learned from that experience. One day when Plum and his wife were sitting in a restaurant, a man at another table came up and said, "You're Plum. You flew jet fighters in Vietnam from the aircraft Kitty Hawk. You were shot down." "How in the world did you know that?" asked Plum. "I packed your parachute," the man replied. Plum gasped in surprise and gratitude. The man pumped his hand and said, "I guess it worked." And Plum assured him, "It sure did. If your chute hadn't worked, I wouldn't be here today." Plum couldn't think that night, thinking about that man. Plum says, "I kept wondering what he might have looked like in a Navy uniform. A white hat, a bib in the back, a bell-bottom trousers. I wonder how many times I might have seen him and not even said, 'Good morning, how are you?' or anything, because you see, I was the fighter pilot and he was just a sailor." Plum thought of the hours the sailor must have spent on that long wooden table in the bowels of the aircraft carrier, carefully weaving the shrouds and folding the silks of each chute, holding in his hands each time the fate of someone he didn't know. Now, as a motivational speaker, Plum asks his audiences, "Who's packing your parachute?" He points out that everyone has someone who provides what they need to make it through the day. Plum also points out that he needed many kinds of parachutes when his plane was shot down over enemy territory. He needed his physical parachute, his mental parachute, his emotional parachute, and his spiritual parachute. He called on all these supports before reaching freedom and returning home. Sometimes, in the daily challenges that life gives us, we miss what is really important. We may fail to say hello, please, or thank you, or congratulate someone on something wonderful that has happened to them, give a compliment, or just do something nice for no reason. How is your parachute packing coming along lately? Who looks to you for strength in times of need? And perhaps more importantly, who are the special people in your life who provide you with the encouragement you need when the chips are down? Perhaps it's time right now to give these people a call and thank them for packing your shoe. As you go through the rest of this day, this weekend, this month, this year, please recognize the people who packed your parachute and be ready to offer to pack someone else's shoe. In the words of the anonymous poet, when I searched for myself, I could not find me. And when I searched for my God, I could not find thee. But when I searched for others, I found all three. When you search for others to help, when you're ready to pack someone else's shoes, I promise you, I guarantee you, you will find your inner self, you will discover your spiritual compass, and you will be fulfilling what I believe is one of the most important and certainly the most beautiful of all of the 613 commandments in the Bible. And that's tikkun olam, to repair this world and make it a better, a healthier, and a safer place in which to live. Everyone, please turn to page 186. We're going to welcome the Shabbat. First with the singing of the, we're going to bring the bride in. It's like a bride's coming into our sanctuary in her white dress, and she's coming in, and we welcome her with song. And it's the L'cha Dodi. We're going to sing the first verse and the last verse. And if you want, the tradition is, for those of you who may want, on the last verse, it's a tradition to rise and face the door to literally welcome the bride in. So on page 186. Allah la 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 L'cha Dodi, Allah la 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 Librat Kala, Allah la 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 B'nai Shabbat, B'nai Shabbat, Nikah V'la, Shamor B'zachor, B'dibur Echad, Ishmi'anu, El Ham Yuchad, Adonai Echad, Ushemo Echad, L'Shem Ul Tiferet, V'Liti La, 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 L'cha Dodi, Allah, La, La, L'Ikrat Kala, Allah, La, La, B'nai Shabbat, B'nai Shabbat, Nikah V'la. Turn to page 188 and the bottom of the page. Boi B'Shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam B'Simcha, Ufsahala, Tov Emunei, Am Sigula, Boi Kala, Boi Kala, La, 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 L'cha Dodi, Allah, La, La, L'ikrat Kala, Allah, La, 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 B'nai Shabbat, B'nai Shabbat, Nikah V'la. And you may be seated. And we're going to continue with a hymn that's I couldn't find in the prayer book, but it's a traditional Friday evening hymn that welcomes each other and the Shabbat. So if you know it, sing along with me. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei HaSharei, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Morchem l'Shalom, Malachei HaShalom, Malachei Elyon, Mi-Melech, Malachei Amlachim, something that we say to someone who is going to Israel. For example, when Jennifer goes to Israel, then normally we would say to her, Seichem l'shalom, uboachem l'shalom. From this song, you should go in peace, and you should come back in peace. So it's very nice. We continue our service on page 200, and everyone who can please rise, and we start our official call to prayer on page 200. And we'll do it both in the Hebrew and the English. Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Bless the Eternal who is blessed. Bless the Eternal who is blessed forever and ever. And you may be seated. And let's continue in the English. And blessed are you, eternal our God, ruler of the universe, who speaks the evening into being, skillfully opens the gate, thoroughly alters the time and changes the seasons, and arranges the stars in their heavenly courses according to your plan. Creator of day and night, rolling light away from darkness and darkness from light, making the day pass and the night approach, and separating between day and night. Adonai Tzvaot is your name, ever-living God. May you reign continually over us forever and ever. Blessed are you, eternal, who brings on evening. El Chai v'Kayim, Tamid Yimlok Aleinu, Le'olam Va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, HaMa'ariv Aravim. On page 202 or 203. Let's continue in the English. You have loved your people, the house of Israel, with infinite love. You taught us Torah and mitzvot, statutes and laws. Therefore, eternal our God, as we lie down or rise up, we think of your laws and speak of them, rejoicing in your words of Torah and your mitzvot forever and ever. For they are our life and the fullness of our days, and on them we will meditate day and night. May you never withdraw your love from us. Praised are you, eternal, who loves the people of Israel. V'avatcha al tasir mimenu li'olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. So we now come to the cornerstone prayer in the Jewish faith. Shema, hear, listen. And I'd like to share the following with you before we say it together. This was a prayer, by the way, that almost every martyr had on his lips when he was taken either to the gas chambers or to other such tortures. So I'd like to share the following with you. Judaism begins with the commandment, Hear, O Israel. But what does it really mean to hear? The person who attends a concert with his mind on business hears, but does not really hear. The person who walks amid the song of birds and thinks only of what he will have for dinner hears, but does not really hear. The man who listens to the words of his friend or his wife or his child and does not catch their note of urgency, notice me, help me, care about me, hears, but does not really hear. The man who listens to the news and thinks only of how it will affect his business hears, but does not really hear. The person who listens to the rabbi's sermon and thinks that someone else is being addressed hears, but does not really hear. On this special Shabbat, O Lord, sharpen our ability to hear. May we hear the music of the world, the infant's cry and the lover's sigh. May we hear the call for help of the lonely soul and the sound of the breaking heart. May we hear the words of our friends and their unspoken pleas and dreams. May we hear within ourselves the yearnings that are struggling for expression. May we hear you, O God, for only if we hear you do we have the right to hope that you will hear us. Hear the prayers that we offer to you on this day, O God, and may we hear them too. On page 202, in the Hebrew and the English. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kavod, Malchuto Le'olam va'ed. Hear, O Israel, the Eternal is our God, the Eternal is one. On page 204, let's continue in both the Hebrew and the English. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, v'chol levavecha, v'chol nafshecha, v'chol miodecha. V'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh, asher anokim etzavecha hayom al levavecha. V'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. V'shiftecha b'veitecha, v'vlechtecha b'aderech, v'shaftecha v'kumecha. V'shartam liot ayadecha, v'hayu letotafot b'neinecha, v'chtavtam al mezuzot b'eitecha, v'visharecha. In English, you shall love the Eternal your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. Take to heart these instructions with which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Speak of them when you sit in your home, when you walk on your way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign on your hand, and let them serve as a symbol above your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your home and on your gates. This is where we get the commandment to put the mezuzah up on the doorposts of our home. So continue silently to page 208. On page 208, in the middle of the page, is a song that Miriam, Moses' sister, sang as the Jews were crossing the Red Sea. She picked up her tambourine and she led all of the Israelites in song singing this particular verse. Nohora tehilot, ohosei fela. Nohora tehilot, ohosei fela. Micha mocha bo'elim Adonai. Mika mocha nedor b'hakodesh. Nahora tehilot ohosei fela. Nahora tehilot ohosei fela. Let's continue in the Hebrew. Malkucha ra'uvanecha bokei hayom b'fnei Moshe ze'eli anubi amru Adonai yimloch li'olam va'ed v'ne'emar kifada Adonai et Yaakov u'bi'olam miyad chazak mimenu baruch atah Adonai go'al Yisrael. On page 209, let's continue in English. Help us, Eternal our God, to lie down in peace and raise us up to life again, our sovereign. Spread over us your shelter of peace. Guide us with your good counsel. Save us for the sake of your mercy. Shield us and ward us from our enemies and pestilence, from sword, starvation, and sorrow. Remove the force of the evil inclination that surrounds us. Shelter us in the shadow of your wings. For you are God, our guardian, deliverer. You are a gracious and merciful sovereign. Guide our going and our coming, to life and to peace evermore. And spread over us the shelter of your peace. Praised are you, Eternal, who spreads the shelter of peace over us, over all your people Israel, and over Yerushalayim. Haporei sukat shalom aleinu, v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim. Continuing the Hebrew, on page 210, this is the verse from the Torah that commands us to keep the Sabbath day. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, la'asot et ha-Shabbat, l'doratam b'rit olam, b'nei u'bein b'nei Yisrael, oti li'olam, Sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz u'bayom hashvi'i know, when I was a young boy, probably about 9 or 10 years old, my dad used to take me to synagogue every Saturday morning. And he wasn't that religious. So I once asked him, Dad, why do you go to synagogue every Saturday morning? And he said, listen, son, he said, people go to synagogue for different reasons. He said, take my friend Goldstein. Goldstein goes to synagogue to talk to God, and I go to synagogue to talk to Goldstein. So we're now at the point in the service. It's a very, very important moment where we have the opportunity to talk to God. We can talk to God in the words of the prayer book, which are beautiful, or we can talk to God with our own words, with our own feelings. Even struggle with God, if that's what's needed. You know, the word Israel literally means, and he struggled with God. And it refers to Jacob's all-night fight with the angel. So it's okay, it's even Jewish to struggle with God. So now's our opportunity to talk to God in whatever words we want to use and whatever feelings we want to have. It's an incredible moment in the service. And before we do that, I would just like to point out one thing. If you look at the first paragraph, it says the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, and the God of Sarah. It repeats God of all the time. It would have made much better English just to say the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So why does it repeat God of every time? So my feeling is that Abraham had a relationship that was on a path to God that was different than Isaac. And Isaac had a relationship and was on a path to God that was different than his father. And Jacob was on a path to God and had a relationship that was different than his father and his grandfather. Every one was important, and every one was correct. None of them was more important or less important than the other. What was important is that they have the relationship and that they be on the path to God. Our Jewish tent should be big enough to cover all relationships, all approaches to God. I may not agree with the way that you believe or carry out the practice, but as long as you have that relationship, as long as you're within the tent, then that's important. And I think that's a lesson that we need to learn today, that the tent, the Jewish tent anyway, is big enough to encompass all of our relationships, all of our approaches. The primary thing is that we have the relationship and that we have the approach. So on page 226, we end on page 236, and please rise if you can. Silent devotion. And when you're concluded, you may be seated. So Chaplain Staley and Chang, anyway, one of my jobs is that I happen to be the rabbi to about 6 cruise lines. And one of the cruise lines was the Cunard, the QE2s and QE2, and anyway.
I went on that one.
Yeah, it's a great one. So about 8 or 10 years ago, I was asked to be the official chaplain to the last sailing of the QE2. And they had a lot of celebrities on board from England to celebrate this moment. And the most important was Lady Margaret Thatcher, the former Prime Minister. Now, prior to the sailing, they had a reception. And since I was the official chaplain, I was invited to the reception. You stood in line, and here the former Prime Minister came down and shook your hand. Few people realized that she represented a very Jewish area. So she knew Hebrew words, Hebrew customs, and stuff. So she got to me, and I said, "Shalom, Lady Thatcher." So she looks at me and she says, "Rabbi, did you just tell me hello or goodbye?" So I said to her, "Neither, Lady Thatcher. I told you peace." And that's what we yearn for as a people. We yearn for peace. It's been avoiding us for thousands of years. But I hope, there's always hope that we will catch hold of it. So on page 236, let's join together in our song of peace. Oh, Hoseh, Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu, Ve'am Kol Yisrael, Ve'imru, Amen. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu, Ve'am Kol Yisrael, Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'am Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'am Kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh Shalom, Ya'aseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu Ve'am Kol Yisrael. V'yimaru, Amen. May the good Lord who makes peace in the high heavens grant peace and comfort to all of us, to our families, to our people, to all mankind. And let us say, Amen. Just very briefly, okay, Jennifer, this week's Torah portion contains, I think, one of the most important incidents in the whole Torah. It's called Pinchas. But what I'm going to point out is that for the first time in all of the Bible for sure, and in the history of mankind, women got to inherit something. So the story was that there was a man by the name of Salafkat, and he had 5 daughters, and he died, and normally his land would go to his sons, but since he didn't have sons, he had 5 daughters. They were going to distribute the land to the cousins and nephews, whatever. So the daughters of Salafkat came to Moses, and they requested that they be given their portion of the land. And Moses brought the case to God, who replied that Salafkat's daughters speak justly. You shall certainly give them a portion of inheritance along with their father's brothers, and you shall transfer their father's inheritance to them. So it's the very first time, certainly in the Torah, but even more so in the history of mankind, where women actually got to inherit something. So anyway, that's what's interesting to me about this Torah portion. We turn now to page 238, and let's chant together. Vayikulu hashamayim v'haaretz v'chol tzevam vayikal Elohim v'yom hashvi'i melachto asher asah vayishkot v'yom hashvi'i mikol melachto asher asah vayivorech Elohim et yom hashvi'i Vayikadesh oto, Kivo Shabbat mikol malachto, Kivo Shabbat mikol malachto, Asher bara Elohim laso. So when my father turned 65, he started to walk 5 miles a day. He's now 94, and we have no idea where he is. Where are you is a very important question. In fact, it's so important that it's the very first question in the Bible. You remember that when Adam and Eve ate from the apple, they ran to hide, and God came forward and said, "Where are you?" Now, God certainly knew where Adam and Eve were. So I believe that God was asking Adam and Eve, man and woman, all of us, do we know where we are in terms of our commitments and our responsibilities to our families and friends, to our community, and to our nation? You, our servicemen and women here today and all over the world, certainly know where you are in terms of your commitment and your responsibility to our nation and to its people. You know, I have an expression that says, all my stories are true, and some really happened. So I want to share with you on this Shabbat a very special story that's true and that really happened. So when my daughter was spending her gap year in college, she went to Israel, and she became the intern to the then Jerusalem mayor, Ehud Olmert. And one of her main responsibilities was that she took 4 English-speaking foreign visitors who were visiting Israel, brought them into the mayor's office for a photo op, and then asked them where they wanted to go that the mayor's office could arrange. And almost 100%, it was to one of the religious or the historical sites. It was to the Western Wall. It was to the Via Dolorosa. It was to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. It was to something like that. Into the mayor's office one day walks the great basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And after his photo op with the mayor, they ask him where he wants to go, and he says, "I want a meeting with the chief rabbi of Israel," who at the time was Israel Mayor Lau. And they're stunned. I mean, here's a black Muslim with few ties to the Jewish community asking that his one event that he could get from the mayor's office be a meeting with the chief rabbi. So my daughter arranges the meeting. They go over to the chief rabbi's office. They sit down in his study, and then Kareem then proceeds to tell him the following story. Kareem's father, Lou Alcindor Sr., was the first black officer to free the Buchenwald concentration camp. And when he walked in, he said, "I'm literally walking in the valley of the shadow of death." And he went around the camp looking, searching for bodies alive. And in a pile of bodies by one of the barracks, he found a 10-year-old boy, barely alive. And he lifts the boy up, and he brings him to the center of camp, where the officers were, the Nazi officers. And with tears in his eyes, and with pictures being taken of this, he starts to scream at the officers, "This is who you wanted to destroy? And this is who you wanted to kill?" That 10-year-old boy was the chief rabbi of Israel. He was the youngest survivor of the Buchenwald concentration camp. And Kareem's father, Lou Alcindor Sr., watched as his career grew, and when he learned his son was going to Israel, he said, "You have to show the rabbi the picture." So my daughter was in tears. The chief rabbi was stunned. He leaves the room and comes back a few minutes later with one of those Roman oil artifacts, oil lamps, with the beautiful inscription from the Talmud on it, "If you save one life, you save an entire world." And he said to Kareem, "You tell your father that he has saved many lives and many special worlds." Just before he passed away, I had the honor to hear Elie Wiesel, Nobel laureate, say, "The opposite of right is not wrong, it's indifference. The opposite of good is not evil, it's indifference. The opposite of life is not death, it's indifference, because when you're indifferent, you die before you actually die. You are setting the example for all of us of not only fighting indifference, but making a difference. And I can tell you that in the process, you're saving many lives and many special worlds. I had a college professor who once told me, Barry, if you have a rendezvous with destiny, then you better be on time. We have a rendezvous with destiny, as individuals and as a nation. But I'm so proud personally, and I speak on behalf of many others, of what you are doing for our country. And I know because of you, we will not only be on time, but in time. As Theodor Herzl was the father of modern Zionism once famously said, Im tirtzu ein zu agada. If you will it, it will be no dream. So let's, on this 4th of July weekend, let's will it together for our nation, for our families. Let's will it so that the dream we have for everything we hold dear will continue to be true not only for now, but for years and years and years to come. As we say every single day in our prayers, Ad Hashem oz v'amo yitain, Ad Hashem yivarech et amo b'shalom. May God grant strength to all of his people. And in honor of our being here on this very special weekend, may God finally bless us all with peace. Amen. I would now like to do a prayer for the sick, and what I'm going to do it in the Hebrew and the English. And as I do it, everyone, if you have someone in mind, a relative, a neighbor, a friend, please in their hearts think of the name and say it. So Mishaberach Avotenu, Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov, Sarah Rivka Rachel Leah, Hu Yivarech V'Yirapeh Et HaCholim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yimalei Rachamim Olav, Lahachaziko U'Larapa'oto, V'Yishlach Lo Mehera Refuah Shlema, L'Chol Avarav V'Gidot B'Toch Shar Cholei Yisrael, Refuat HaNefesh, Refuat HaGuf, V'Namar Amen. May he who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal. May the Holy One in mercy strengthen them and heal them soon, body and soul, together with others who suffer illness. And let us say, Amen. We now turn to page 244. And those who can, please rise. Aleinu. By the way, the word Aleinu means on us, upon us. It's very interesting. We can't shove it off to anybody else. It's upon us to work to make things better, to correct things that are wrong, and to make things better. Aleinu l'shabeach v'adon hakol, l'tei t'v'gala yotzer breshit, shalom asanu t'goyei ha'arazot, v'lo samanu mishpachot ha'adama, shalom sam talkeinu kahem, v'nega'or aleinu k'kol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, u'mishkachim u'modim, lifnim elef, malkei hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And you may be seated and turn to page 246. In the bottom of the page, V'ne'emar, v'hayom Adonai, l'melech ha'kol ha'ores, v'yomahu, yeh Adonai echad, l'shemo, echad. Now please turn to page 248. So the origins of our mourner's prayer, which is called the Kaddish and means holiness, are very mysterious. Angels are said to have brought it down to God, from God. It is the only prayer in our faith that has the power to link both the living and the dead. But if you were to look at the English translation of the mourner's prayer, there is absolutely no mention of death in our mourner's prayer. Therefore, it causes us to focus on the blessings of life. And those who have passed away who were dear to us are certainly blessings in our life. So if you can, please rise, and on 248, let's all say the Kaddish together, and let's keep in mind those poor tragic souls who were lost in the Surfside condo building down in Florida. Page 248. Yikadal, Yikadash, Shemei Rabbah. Yalmad Yivrach Yerutei, Yamlich Malchutei. V'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei v'chol Beit Yisrael, v'adolam v'bizman kori v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah v'barach v'yolam v'omei omaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar v'yitbromah v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shmei Yikudashah v'rechu. La'ela min kol mirachata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiram bi'olma, v'imru Amen. Yehesh shmama rabba min shumaya, v'chayim, aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom v'roma, u'yaseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru Amen. And you may be seated. I would personally, before we start to conclude the service, like to thank First Lieutenant Scott Klein for not only for his invitation here, and Ellie also. They are a remarkable couple and just an inspiration and an uplift to everyone who knows them and who works with them. So thank you for the invitation. Of course, I have a final thought. It is said that President Abraham Lincoln would often slip out of the White House on Wednesday evenings to go hear the great sermons of Dr. Phineas Gurley at the New York Avenue Presbyterian Church. When Dr. Gurley knew that the president would be in attendance, he left his office door open, and Lincoln would ensconce himself in the minister's study and listen quietly to Gurley's words. During the walk back from church one evening, an aide asked Mr. Lincoln his appraisal of the preacher's sermon. The president replied that he found Gurley's words thoughtful and articulate, well argued and deeply grounded in Scripture. Then you thought it was an excellent sermon, asked the aide. No, said Lincoln, but you said that the content was superb, that the minister's words were delivered with eloquence and grace. This is all true, Lincoln replied. But Dr. Gurley forgot the most important ingredient in a religious speech. He forgot to ask us to do something great. Being asked to do something great, perhaps this is one of the reasons that many of us turn to our faith as a way of deepening and enhancing the experience of everyday living. There is so much Judaism has to offer, a sense of history and tradition, a connection to those who have come before and those who will come after, a feeling of belonging to a community and to a people, a heritage rich with holidays and rituals, culture, and sacred text. Along with these gifts, however, our religion is also one that makes demands on us, that teaches us that we are to aspire towards greatness in the way in which we treat one another and the world around us. Judaism may bring immense joy and meaning into our lives, but if its influence stops there, it is not sufficient. As President Lincoln reminds us, the most important ingredient in a religious speech, as in a religious life, is to actively inspire individuals toward the good. This 4th of July reminds us that we need to join with our fellow Americans to create strong, viable, and thriving communities built upon strong values and the vision to create a better world for all. This is the opportunity that our nation's birthday gives us. We may not be able to do what our founding fathers did, or what you, our troops, are doing. Give up your lives, your homes, your families. But for 24 minutes, 24 days, 24 hours, or 24 days of the year, we can be like you. We can work on behalf of America with our hands, with our hearts, with our sweat, and with our devotion, knowing that what we do is the most important work in the world. During this holiday weekend, let us always remember one good president and his call for greatness. May God bless America, and may America always remember to bless God. Shabbat Shalom. Let's conclude, not with the normal Yigdal or the Adon Olam, but in honor of our 245th birthday, let's conclude with two wonderful songs. First, God Bless America. That was written by Irving Berlin, a nice Jewish boy in Brooklyn. And then America the Beautiful. So let's all join in together. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night from the light up above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Oh, beautiful, for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesty, above the fruited plain. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Yeah, thank you, Rabbi Barry, for that beautiful, beautiful service. And that will conclude for all of you who've been tuning in online. For everybody here, special treat again, we'll head into the back for, please join us, stick around for an oneg, where we will make the kiddush, say hamotzi, enjoy some refreshments. And again, as always, join us each and every Friday night, 1900 right here in Chapel 3, and for all of the upcoming high holidays with more information to come. Thank you. That was beautiful.